All right, from the studio in Fairfax City, we're very grateful that Andy Glass accepted our invitation to our show. Andy, welcome to my humble podcast, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Claudia. It's lovely to be here, man.
No problem. Andy, let's go back to the beginning of your life. Were you born like in a musical family? I mean, how was your start in music to begin with?
Yeah, no, my father was a big music fan, and actually, I know, like your father, he was a big Louis Armstrong fan. He loved the
Ooh,
jazz. He took me to see Oscar Peterson when I was very young, and George Shearing, people like that. My mother used to play a little bit of piano, but they weren't musicians. But they were very, very supportive of me in my music. And
yeah.
they took me to the village guitar teacher, to learn some Bob Dylan songs, and then I kind of I discovered Deep Purple, and I wanted to do my own thing, so I just kind of was self-taught. But when I started wanting to play in bands and play with other musicians, they would always be right there to take me along, and take me to gigs, and then when I was doing gigs, they'd come along. They used to come to the Marquee in London, and see us every
Yeah.
time we played. So they were really incredibly supportive, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, coach. In high school, when you were, I don't know, 14 to 18, were you in any band like all the kids try to
Well,
get with the
yeah,
girls?
sure. I mean, I was playing, I was already playing then. I mean, I started playing when I was about 11, and
Wow.
this cat brought a guitar into school one day, the last year of primary school here, and it was like a magnet, and I thought, wow, so, right, let me have a go on that, and and he let me have a go, and I just immediately felt this kind of connection with it. And when I looked, I mean, I couldn't play it, obviously. And when I looked down, my fingers were bleeding onto his guitar, so there was a blood connection there with the guitar straight away. But when I was 14, an older friend of mine, I was living in South Wales at the time, and an older friend of mine said, "Hey, do you want to come and see a gig?" Because I'd never been to a gig before. So
Yeah.
he took me to this gig in Cardiff, which was not too far away. He was like, I guess he must have been 18. I mean, back in the day, people didn't worry about, how old you were and stuff. But he took me to this gig, and I had no idea what I was going to see. And it was the Capitol Theatre in Cardiff in 1973. And the first band that came on were this band called Griffon, right? And I mean, I don't know if you know Griffon, but I just thought, wow, this is incredible. How could anything be better than this music that these guys are playing live? It was blowing my mind. They finished, and then Yes came on. And then Yes came on,
Wow. What's
and it
going
just
on?
and it just changed my life. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
obviously that has influenced me ever since that experience. But sure, yeah, I was playing in little bands, and a huge fan of music, and yeah, you know.
So you finished the Weimar High School here. Any pressure for your family about forget about music? It's difficult to make a living. You're not going to get a job. You sleep during the day. You play during the night. Go to law school. Become a doctor. Become an engineer. Or where it was up to you to say no. That I want to give it a try. Doesn't work
Yeah,
out. I go back to you the university.
yeah, sure. No, no, I mean, no, there wasn't, but I recognized that they wanted the best for me, and that they wanted me to have some security, job security. And I mean, I left school when I was 16, and because you could in those days, and all I wanted to be a musician. But they said, look, if you're going to leave school, then you have to get a job. So I got a job right away, and I was actually a groundsman, like cutting grass in this big hospital, which I loved. But I knew that that wasn't what my parents had in mind for me. So, so I did. I got kind of for them really. I got a job. I trained as an architectural technician, so drawing technical drawings for buildings, and I did that for 4 years, and it was during that time that I started Solstice with Mark Elton.
Yeah.
And I was living on a like a hippie site, you know, in a caravan, and getting the bus into Aylesbury and to work with the county architects, which is the county council architects department. And it was a wild time, and I was having an amazing time. But I kept the job going. I kept it going until I qualified, you know, and I was kind of doing that really for my parents. So the moment I qualified, that's when I left the job and just started focusing on music, you know. So that would have been like 1982 or something like that, you know. And I kind of felt, okay, my parents, they know I've got something to fall back on, and now I can just, you know, immerse myself fully in the life of this kind of hippie musician, you know.
Gotcha, gotcha. How difficult was in 1980 when you formed the band with Mark? I mean, you know, you were the two of you, or you guys hired more people to play with, or to.
Me and Mark had met, you know, a year or two prior to that. So I was actually in a band called Electric Gypsy, who were the band that eventually morphed into Marillion. So so we were all friends. They were from Aylesbury as well, in Buckinghamshire in the UK, and we were all friends. We were actually me and the singer were actually kicked out of Electric Gypsy, you know, because we were young, man. You know, we were like, suppose I was kind of 17, about 17, and you know, I was really embracing the kind of hippie ethic, you know, and we were potheads, you know. We like to smoke a little pot, you know, and kind of, you know, enjoy things. And Mick Pointer and Doug Irvin, who were the main guys in Electric Gypsy, yeah, were not like that. You know, they were like very focused. They knew what they wanted to do. So they kicked me and the singer out of that band, and ultimately, you know, eventually it was Steve Rothery and Fish that replaced us. You know, there were there were a few people in between. And of course, Mick Pointer was in Marillion for that first album. So there's a strong connection between us. And so me and Mark had met, I don't know, in 78 or something like that. And we were just into like jamming, you know, we were just into playing music purely for the sake of it, you know, not for an audience particularly. And there was a kind of community of us that were into that. You know, we were living this kind of hippie lifestyle, living in vehicles, you know, sitting around a campfire, playing music together. That was our thing. You know, we didn't care about, you know, we had no agenda, we had no ambition, you know, to try and be commercially successful or even to play to a big audience, you know. So, but we thought, we were playing all this music and we thought, well, yeah, let's see if we can get a band together, you know. And through Alan King, who was the vocalist in Electric Gypsy, he introduced us to Mark Hawkins, the bass player, and he had a mate who was a drummer, Dave Harden, you know. So we just put this 4-piece band together and found this little basement to rehearse in. And we thought, hey, yeah, we got a band here, so let's do a gig, you know. So we did our first gig in the local Berkhamsted Civic Hall, I think it was called. And to our amazement, I mean, literally to our amazement, people really liked it, you know. So we thought, hey, all right, we got something here. So it just kind of went on from there, you know, and we were playing free festivals, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to be this kind of traveling minstrel, you know, living in a bus and playing music for free, you know, through the middle of the night in some, you know, wrecked Marquee in a free festival somewhere, you know. And we just loved all that, and that was just kind of the lifestyle that we embraced, you know. So we were kind of, if anything, anti-commercialism, you know. So when the band kind of accidentally got very popular, and that was really essentially because Marillion, who were obviously starting to do well and were friends, they kept giving us supports, you know. So come and play with us, man, you know. So we were playing all these initially kind of shitty little gigs, you know, with them, and then they got into the Marquee, which was is the iconic London venue, you know, which is no longer there, but and so they had to support them, you know. They were introducing us to more and more audience who were getting into us, you know. So then we got our own headlines at the Marquee, and because the Marquee were involved in running Reading Rock Festival, which is a big festival. We got that festival in '83, and this thing just kept building. And of course, as soon as the industry see popularity building, even though it was unbelievably unfashionable, the media would never dare say that they liked progressive rock music at that time, in the early '80s. Because Marillion were doing so well, and then they were signed by EMI, we got approached. We got approached by Marillion's manager, we got approached by various record companies, but we just weren't interested. We just didn't have any interest in it at all. We didn't want, and we had no ambitious drive. The kind of drive that Fish absolutely had. We didn't care about that. We were just loving the fact that we were playing gigs, making music that people enjoyed, and loved playing together. And actually, that hasn't really changed to this day. The only difference now is that over these last 5 years, I've become really driven. To drive the music where we can. So yeah, that early '80s scene was wonderful, and I mean the audience at the Marquee and elsewhere, they were very young. They were just a few years younger than us. It was like a 18 to 25 kind of age range, and it was a thrilling time because there were kind of many bands that we would do the same that Marillion did for us. As when we were getting our headlines, we got bands like IQ and Pendragon to come and play with us, and Liaison and Haze and various other bands. So this great little scene started in London, and we now call it the neo-prog scene, and people are writing books about it and stuff.
That's right. One of the year now. Wow, amazing. Well, humble beginnings, man. And then after that, after recording Jan Anderson in the studio, they invited you to become the front of the house, sound engineer with Jethro Tull, right, at the time?
Yeah, so we're fast forwarding to the '90s now. Yeah. So the thing is, we did manage to do one album before we split up in '85, which was Silent Dance, right?
That's right.
In 1984. Yeah. And the thing is that until that point, we'd been purely a live band. I mean, we'd recorded a couple of little cassettes, but we didn't have the money to record an album. So anyway, we got that opportunity, and of course we were very excited about it. And it was produced by Nigel Maslin-Jones, who is an amazing musician songwriter who we were really big fans of. So obviously we had high hopes for that. But what we really went in wanting like a well-recorded version of what we did live, but that's not what we came out with, So we were kind of we were disappointed, and I think so were a lot of the fans. So it kind of became a mission for me to learn how to do it myself, So learn how to record music, and I did that through many years of playing, getting little bits of equipment and learning how to do it. So by the time the mid-90s came around, I was doing quite a lot of work in other studios as an engineer. And someone that I knew, had come to know quite well, was Mick Abrahams, who was the original guitar player with Jethro Tull. And I was producing an album for him, which was a kind of an acoustic album. And he said, tomorrow I've got Ian Anderson's coming in. He's going to put some flute and some blues harp, on a couple of tracks. So I thought, great. Because, of course, I was a Jethro Tull fan. I saw them in the 70s, and they were just like mind-blowingly good, And so I was excited about that. Anyway, Ian came in and we did the session and it went very well. And he's a very nice man, and he was brilliant. He just put down the stuff that Mick wanted, and we said goodbye, And then the next day, Kenny Wiley, who was Jethro Tull's production manager, just phoned me up and said, Ian's said, he met you yesterday, and he's decided he wants a musician on front of house to mix the sound live for Tull. And I was like, wow, okay. And he would like you to come along and meet him and talk about it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, amazing. But I have never done live sound before. You know, live sound is a different skill set to studio sound, right? So anyway, I go along to Ian's beautiful mansion in Swindon, and I meet him, and we have he's allowed 3 hours actually for this audition. All right. So I mean, we go into the into his studio, which is lovely, and Ian talks to me for 2 hours and 15 minutes because when Ian gets talking, man, there's no stopping him, and I ain't gonna stop him, you know,
Of
because
course.
who's gonna do that? And it was fascinating anyway. So then there's 45 minutes left, and he says, "Okay, what I want you to do is mix a track from our latest album, which was Roots and Branches." So I got 45 minutes, and I'm thinking, I don't know, I didn't know the desk or anything. I didn't know where anything was. So all I could do was a very basic, kind of quick mix. I didn't muck around with it. I just made sure everything was balanced nicely and it was a nice overall sound. And he loved it. And I knew that he'd had some real top engineers come in. So I was, up against some real stiff competition. But the reason he loved it was because I didn't do anything with it. He hates all this kind of processing and unnecessarily affecting things. So he kind of set me up to succeed by not leaving me any time to do that anyway, right?
That's right.
So he was really happy with it. I said to him, man, I've never done live sound before. He's like, it'll be fine. So the first time I ever did live sound was Jethro Tull on their UK tour, and it was absolutely terrifying.
I wonder.
But
Wow.
anyway, yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Baptism by fire, they call it here in the
Yeah,
US.
that's right.
That's right.
Not half. But he was really sweet to me, man, because I said, actually out of interest, Ian, I don't know if he still does it, but he would always, every night, get the engineer to record the show
I got it.
just
Yeah.
onto a cassette, it was in those days. So he could have a copy, and then he would listen back and, give feedback on performances and all the rest of it. And he just said a couple of things that he wanted me to do with the sound, and then left it. And then we finished that tour 2 weeks, and of course there were loads of other tours coming up, a long 3 month tour. I said to him, look, Ian, I don't really feel confident that I'm doing the best job I can here, because I've had no training in this, and I'm kind of learning on the job, which is great, but I don't have time to learn on the job. So he said, hey, don't worry, Andy. And he booked me onto a course in Florida. He flew me out, put me up in a hotel. And I was on this 10-day course. He put me on this 10-day course in Florida on sound reinforcement. So I could kind of fill in some of the gaps in my knowledge. So I found him to be an incredibly supportive, kind and good employer, So I have a lot of good things to say about Ian.
Good for you, man. Good for you. And then how difficult was for you, now going back to your band, to put Silent Dance together in 1984?
Well, the only difficulty was finding the money because, as I said, we weren't chasing money anyway, not that there was any to be made. But by the time we got to 83 or 80, well, certainly 84, we had quite a big profile. And as I mentioned earlier, we were getting approached by people from the business. And one of them was from a publishing company, which seemed to make sense to us to do that. So we did a little publishing deal and we've got an advance for that. And we thought, oh, okay, we've got a little lump of money here. Let's use it to record an album. So that solved our dilemma, which was that we just didn't have the cash to go into a studio. I mean, in those days, a studio would cost a lot of money. It's different now, but
Yeah.
so that really solved that issue. And we recorded in a beautiful residential place down in Cornwall, say with Nigel, and it was just perfect, environment for us to be in. So there was no problem actually making it happen. But the process itself was difficult. I mean, Mark Elton is a very, very strong-minded character, and so is Nigel Maslin-Jones, who was producing it. And they both had very strong feelings about how this album should go, and they were not the same. you know. So those guys butted heads almost from the beginning. And my role became like peacemaker, really, to try and mediate between them so we could actually get something finished and get something done. So that, from that point of view, the process was very difficult, and unsurprisingly, we weren't that happy with what came out of it. But back in 2013, we did an album called Prophecy, and a couple of years before that, Stephen Wilson had come to one of our gigs, because he comes to our gigs every once in a while, and he came to one we did in London. And after the show, he said, we were chatting, and he said, do you still have the tapes from Silent Dance? Because I loved that album, but I never liked the way it sounded, and I'd be really interested in remixing it. Now, I mean, if you want Stephen Wilson to remix your album, you better find some serious money to start off with, right? But he wanted to do it for him, which was beautiful, because he used to come and see us in the Marquee when he was a 14-year-old. And he's kind of been a fan ever since, luckily for us. So anyway, I was able to access some of the tapes, and he remixed 3 tracks from that album, and they sound great, man. So actually what we had was better than what we thought we had. And what it took was the right mix. And I remember our front of house engineer at the time, he was like distraught at the way it was sounding, and he actually did a little mix himself in the studio, which probably sounded much nearer to what we were after. But, we weren't in control of that situation, so it ended up being what it was. But so at least we've got a few tracks that do sound, I think, as good as they could, and that's really nice. So those 3 tracks went on our Prophecy album as like extra tracks. That's
I got it. Yeah.
Which is great,
Yeah, Stephen Wilson is, man, this is unbelievable. The guy has the capacity to write music, perform, and many bands he can be involved. And then as a mixer, record engineer, good for him, man. Yeah, some people are
absolutely. It's
on board with the talent, So.
And again, I've only got good things to say about him, because he's been an inspiration to me, and he's also been very supportive to me. So when I'm working on an album, I can send him something, and he'll give me a bit of feedback. And actually, when I was mixing Clan, when I heard Harmony Codex, I just thought, this is the best sounding album I've ever heard. The production and the quality of the sound, and just the way you can immerse yourself in that mix, and it just sounds like perfect to me. So that was my kind of go-to reference point when I was mixing Clan. I would like do a mix, and then I listen to something from the Harmony Codex and go, well, how does this compare? And obviously it never really compared very well, but it was raising my game just by using that as my point of reference. So yeah, he's been fantastic, that guy.
Yeah, I'm going to be seeing Steven playing live here in the Washington in October, November, wherever he's coming back. I never met him, and I have interviewed people that have worked with him in the past, but never met the guy. And the new album is very good, actually. So the guy is raising the level. I mean, like from here to here, from here to here. And
that's right.
That's good, right, good, good for him, man. There are people are born. So what's happened between 1984 and New Life, 93, and then Circle in 97? 15 years in between or so, right?
Yeah, well, the band's very definitely split up in 85. I kind of went on to do, to work with various bands. And I was lucky enough to get some really good session work. In 88, I was a Bill. So I was a big fan of Bill Withers when I was a kid, man. I mean, I still am now. So I'm playing in a little bar in a covers band, and this guy comes up afterwards and he says, "Yeah, I'm putting a band together to play with Bill Withers for his UK tour. Would you be interested?" So this is why you have to be out there doing stuff, if you want
Yeah.
things to happen. So I said, well, I said, "You're kidding me, right?" And he says, "No, no, no, I've been watching you play, I think it would be good." So next thing I know, I'm in a rehearsal room with my fucking hero, man, with Bill Withers, and we did a UK tour, and then sometime later we did a European tour because he had a US band, of course, but I guess singers like that, they're kind of used to the idea of having a pickup band when they go to different parts of the world. And it was actually a remix of Ain't No Sunshine, had been a huge hit in Europe around that time. So his management wanted him to come over and play. And what an education that was, working with Bill Withers. My Lord, what a man, And it's funny because I was in my 20s then, and I was watching this guy perform and hearing him sing. And I'm thinking, man, how is this guy still so good at 50 years old? Right? The
Mm.
guy's only 50, what I mean? But back in the day, you just didn't see musicians really working through their 40s even, they kind of disappeared somehow. So anyway, yeah, playing with him was extraordinary. I mean, I've always loved a groove, and he's the master of a groove. Very simple, just incredible feel to it. And so I learned a lot from him, and we became very good friends actually. Because between you and me, he likes a little smoke as well, So after, and I was the only other one in the band that did. So after the gigs, we go back to the hotel room, we'd share a smoke and a chat. And he was another guy that could just talk for hours. And in fact, on the gigs, right, on the gigs, I swear he spent as much time talking to the audience as we did actually playing music. He
Wow.
was such a raconteur, and such an interesting character, with stories, just love stories, So yeah, so that was great. So yeah, and then in '93, sorry, to answer your question, when we did Silent Dance, obviously we had a lot more material than you can fit on a vinyl record, 45 minutes. We had like hours of material. So there were other songs that I felt deserved to be recorded. And I'd learned a bit about recording by this point, and I had a little home studio. I mean, I couldn't record drums, but I could do everything else. So I thought, yeah, look, let's record some of those other tracks from the catalogue that otherwise will just be lost forever, So Mark came up, we managed to find a singer because Sandy had left the band, years before, and as far as I knew, wasn't interested, and I couldn't get hold of her because she was somewhere in Ireland, Anyway, we got a band together, which included Craig Sunderland on bass and Pete Hensley on drums, who still plays with us now. And we recorded New Life just to kind of, document that other music. So I didn't have any plans to do anything other than that, really. So we put that out. And also the opportunity was there because Keith Turner from Quasar, he'd set up a little label in the States called Progressive Records, and he had reissued Silent Dance on CD. So it was the first time it came out on CD. It went well, apparently, and he said, look, it'd be great to have another one. So that also tied in with, let's do another CD. And then, so then that was effectively it. And then in '96, going working in studios and stuff, and I just started writing music, and I thought, let's do another Solstice album. And by then I was friends with all the Tull guys, and Clive Bunker in particular had become a very good friend. And he said, "Oh yeah, I'll help out with the album, no problem." So we just kind of recorded this album in the studio I was working in on downtime, in the night, through the night and stuff like that.
Sure.
And again, we weren't really intending to do anything with it. And I remember Clive saying, he just agreed to kind of help out, and then next thing we know, we're doing gigs, which wasn't really the plan. So for a couple of years, we did gigs and we played some. Because Clive was in the band, to be honest, it gave us access to some great gigs, particularly the Jethro Tull conventions, and there's lots of those. We got to play Cooperative Festival, which is a big festival here, in '98,
Sure.
to thousands and thousands of people. And so that was an exciting time. And then, I had a lot of things that weren't going so well in my life at that point, and I just couldn't maintain the energy for it. And then a couple of years later, I met. That band, Jenny Newman was in that band, the live band, and a couple of years later, we ended up getting together and we got married and we started a family. And it was it was such a happy time for me, which has continued because actually through the '90s, particularly, I'd been in a very dark place. Life wasn't working for a number of reasons. It was kind of going wrong badly. But anyway, so meeting Jenny was my new life, and we made a great life together. And we had 3 beautiful children. And then when it got to 2006, I guess, it was like I was in a really good place and I really wanted to, because Solstice has always been my thing, my
Of course.
baby.
Sure, of
So
course.
I
Yeah.
wanted to, yeah. So I wanted to get it going again. And Pete said to me, we were working together running a rock school, for kids, which I still do now. 25 years later, I'm still doing it. But 2006, he said to me, "Oh, why don't you get Solstice going again, man? I'd love to do it, and play drums and come on." So he encouraged me, we got it kicked off again. And Dave Robinson from progrock.co.uk, he reissued all the back catalogue in like deluxe versions, which was great. And then 2010 we did the Spirit album, which was like the first album of original music for many, many years. And that went kind of okay. And then we did a live album, Kindred Spirits, after that. 2013 we did Prophecy, which I've already mentioned. And so we kind of went along just doing an album here and there and just doing a few gigs a year. So it was great. Yeah, but we were just kind of keeping it going. No one was really pushing it or, trying to do anything with it. And then in 2020, everything changed. Everything changed, basically when Jess Holland walked in the room.
Of course. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Before we go there, right? So to the latest period. What? Feel free to. What was the motivation for putting 3 sticks together?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
the of course Solstice went on hiatus for a while you putting that together, which is
Yeah.
very good as well. So
Well, that's a kind of a media take on it, really. I mean, all that was about was when I first met Jenny, I guess it was I suppose it was, let me think, when was it actually? It was very early '90s, and I met
yeah,
Jenny. Uh, and when, and she's always been she trained as a classical musician, but she found her true love with particularly Irish music,
yeah,
traditional music, and specifically from Donegal. She loves that stuff, and so she's a great kind of folk player, and she's always done. I mean, musicians all have to do all kinds of things to make money, right? Because you ain't going to make it from original music, that's for sure. So she started playing for Cayleys, so Cayleys are dances, right? For events and functions and weddings and all that stuff, and festivals too, where they're wonderful, and people come together and dance. So she needed a guitar player for her band, for playing Kaylee's, and that's kind of how we started working together.
I
So
see.
I would just play guitar for her, and then we needed a drummer. I remember Clive Bunker did a couple of the gigs, and they're just bread and butter gigs. So you go and play at someone's big party or whatever it is, and you get paid properly for doing it, which that never happens anywhere else. So so that was our part of our income, and then Pete started playing with us, and Jenny wanted to record an album, so because she writes a lot of tunes, and she wanted to record an album to include some of her music. So Three Sticks was essentially and still is a Kaylee band. So we play the folk festivals, and we play the Kaylee circuit, which are for kind of more serious dancers, that are really into it, and we do weddings and parties and whatever people want, really. So that's just been an ongoing thing. So it was never really intended as a serious musical project that we were going to take forward and do tours with and stuff like that. So that was that.
Yeah.
And it still goes on. We did festivals last summer, and I love it. It's great.
Good for you. The album from 2010, Spirit, is very good as well, man.
Oh, Spirit.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah,
I mean, it's got. I really like the first two tracks on it, actually.
Yeah.
I do like that. I remember the first one's called Solomon's Bridge, and I was watching Steve Vai. I don't know what the song was he was playing, but it was a clip on YouTube, and he was playing this thing. And I just floored me, And this is where a lot of my little sparks of ideas come from. Of course, it's from hearing what other people are doing, and just the way he was approaching it melodically. It wasn't like loads of notes or anything. Because Steve Vai can play anything, obviously. He can play Fripp's music, for God's sake. But he's But he also can play with such emotion and with just very few notes, right? Too. And he was doing that, and I just thought, wow. And the next thing I was writing Solomon's Bridge, so that's where that came from. And I like that tune. And then Skypath West, which is the next tune, was I wrote for my father, who died shortly before that, and it's actually like a Native American thing. Where the spirit passes along through the sky path west, and so that means something to me. Obviously, that song, and I like the tune, but it's a kind of it doesn't have. I don't think it's a particularly consistent album. It has some nice stuff on it, and it's a good start because it was the first original album we've done in 14 years or something.
The album in 2020, the album Shia, was released, and it seemed like it was like a Solstice 2.0, 3.0, if you will, because with the new singer, of course, Jess Holland, and the band. No, it's not just her. The sound is different. The people that are playing the back now, 2025. How in the world were you able to find Jess? Where is she coming from? I know she's very quiet, humble. She doesn't have any presence in the social media stuff.
No.
How you enter her and the people that are playing with you, with the three ladies and Rami and that, it sounds amazing. How in the world?
Thank you. Yeah.
How in the world? You went from here, whatever, to here.
Well,
for a year.
it's just one of those incredibly surprising and beautiful things that's happened very late into my career, in my life generally, and it was just a whole load of things. The stars aligned, literally. A whole load of things came together at the same time. In 2019, the band had just run out of energy, really, and it was still a good band, but when we were getting together, it didn't really feel like something was missing, and we kind of knew what it was, really. What we needed was a new singer, because Emma was always great, but Solstice was not the center of a creative life. You know, she had lots of other things going on, and Solstice was just one of the things that she did. And I might be wrong, but I never felt that she was kind of emotionally invested really in her music. And for whatever reason, it had just run its course. So Jenny said to me, so Jess, right? Me and Jenny had known Jess since she was a little girl, really, you know, since she was 12 or 13, because we do these, they're called folk camps
Yeah, got it.
in the in the UK, and me and Jenny have been run workshops and played for dancing at these camps for years. Jenny's done it all her life, but you know, when we got together, I did it with her and still do it with her. And so Jess was just one of the people, the young musicians who was at our workshops, you know. And so of course we got to know her, and I would see, you know, at these camps in the evening, people get up and they play a song or sing a song or read a poem or something. And Jess would get up and play a piano and sing one of her songs, or play a guitar and sing one of her songs. And you know, I recognized straight away that she was an extraordinary talent. But her world was completely different, you know. I mean, her musical background and what she is into is, you know, couldn't be further removed from progressive rock, really, you know. She's kind of into those jazz, you know, jazzy kind of pop sensibility singers. Anyway, so in 2019, we're thinking about a different singer, and Jenny says to me, "Why don't you try Jess?" And I mean, I'd been thinking of lots of people, different people, not really coming up with anything, but it never occurred to me to ask Jess, because for one thing, I didn't think she'd have any interest in the music Solstice were making.
Yeah.
And also, you know, she's like, I don't know, what is she, like 35 years younger than me or something? You know, she's from an entirely different generation, right?
That's right.
So, but anyway, I thought, well, yeah, why not, you know? So at the very beginning of 2020, I had started writing some stuff because I wanted to, I always want to do more music, you know, for Solstice. And so I said to Jess, "What, you know, do you fancy coming up?" And she came into this room, and I got her to sing Cheyenne, which is obviously a track from the first album. And it was beautiful. It's beautiful, you know. And she seemed to kind of understand the music. She's very intelligent, you know. She seemed to understand the music straight away. So then I got her to try like a new idea that I had, because Cheyenne is very soft and it's a lament, and yeah. But how about we do something which requires, you know, some power and some energy? So we tried a bit of something else. I thought, oh my God, yeah, you know,
She's got it.
she's got all of that.
Wow.
And then and I realized very quickly that she was like actually into it, you know. She was understanding the music, even though it was like completely new to her. And she seemed to be connecting with it, which was really exciting. But at that point, we weren't discussing her necessarily becoming sort of long-term singer in the band. But I did say, look, you know, we've got some gigs coming up. What do you think? And so initially it was just like, yeah, she'd come and do a gig and see how that went and so on. But so that was the first style that came into the alignment, you know. The second one was that actually I'd got to my kids had grown up quite a bit by this point. Yeah, my youngest was like 14 or 15, you know. So all that, you know, time and energy that your children take up and will always take up, but that really intense thing where they really depend on you, that had kind of passed, you know. So they were doing their own thing now, so they didn't need me in the same way. And then the third thing that came into alignment was suddenly we were locked down, right? Beginning of 2020, yes. We were suddenly locked down, and I was locked down in this room, which has a little studio in it. And I now had, you know, months where I could just work on music because I couldn't go into work, you know. I mean, I was doing a bit of Zoom teaching, but essentially I was just here. And an opportunity that would, you know, would only otherwise come as a result of having a massive record deal, you know, and being able to go into some studio somewhere for 3 months and write music, you know, which is obviously would never happen. So there was this extraordinary alignment. So I was writing, I was feeling incredibly inspired because of this singer, you know, and not only did she sing the stuff beautifully, but she would bring ideas. She was involved creatively. This hadn't happened since the 80s, all right, since, you know, Sandy Lee in the 80s and some of the other singers too. Someone who was like invested and bringing something to the table and interpreting it in her way. But she also really understood what it was about and embraced it. So this was just thrilling and so inspiring for me. It just made me want to write more music for her to sing in this band. So, and the other thing that she did, of course, which became apparent very early on, is that she is a brilliant harmony writer and singer. So I'd write a line, she'd sing the line, and then she'd go, she'd sing it in her way, and then she'd go, okay, let's try a harmony on that, you know, and she'd sing this beautiful harmony. She just does it straight away. Oh, let me try another one. And before you know it, there's this beautiful kind of tapestry of harmonies that she's added to the songs. So when eventually we were able to start playing live, we had two choices really. One was that we just recorded the harmonies and triggered them, you know, from a pad, or we found some singers to come in and sing them.
Sure.
I'm really not into being tied to a click track, you know, when we're playing live. I don't want to be tied to a metronome, you know. If we want to make things a little faster or slower, we want to be able to respond to the mood. So I'm really not into click tracks, and I'm not that keen on triggering samples that you have to, you know, adhere to. So for me, it was always going to be human beings, you know. So then so that's what happened. You know, we started rehearsing, and we had 3 young singers came in to sing the harmonies. But it was all just so inspiring and exciting and motivating. So although we've been going for 45 years or whatever it is, it kind of feels like the band started in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, in a way, you know, it's too bad that so many people die all over the world with COVID and the pandemic. It feels so bad. And for some people, that was the best period of your life, because whatever, if you're a writer, you can concentrate at home and type. If you are,
That's
you
right.
know, whatever, a painter, you can be at home and do your thing. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
for some people, they destroyed. Many bands disappear because they have the only income was to perform live. You couldn't perform live, so marriages broke up, and
Yeah.
many bands disappear. You need to get a job, you need to pay the bills because you couldn't perform. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's
It
what
was
a what a
awful. It was awful. I mean,
awful
I
time.
lost,
Yeah.
I lost people that I know through that, and you
Yeah.
know, venues closed, and it was a nightmare for so many
Mhm.
people. But you know, for me personally, it was an opportunity that has led to all this, and then the other thing that came out of that was this, which I hadn't experienced before, was this incredible sense of motivation and drive
Yeah,
to
man.
try and make this music as good as we can and try and get it to as many people as we can.
Yeah.
So I've worked and continue to work very hard to make that happen, and it's thrilling that that seems to be paying off. You know,
That's
so
right.
now I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, right? You know, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to people all over the place that are interested in what we're doing,
Yeah.
and that is the biggest reward that you can imagine.
So
You know?
yeah,
So it just makes me
absolutely.
want to do it even more.
Of course, it. The other album, Light Up for 2022, it's pretty good as well, man.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like
Different, obviously, but
in between those 2 albums, or maybe even earlier, it was obvious to me, you know, that it was going to take time to do something really that I felt was really good, because you know, Jess was amazing from the beginning, but she'd never done it before. You know, she'd never done this before. She'd never been the lead singer in a band. She'd never recorded an album. She'd never, you know, toured with a band, you know, done big shows as the front person in a band. And you could hear as we were doing that through 21 and 22, but 21 and early 22, you could just see how she was developing and growing, you know,
Yeah.
as a singer, and as a performer and as someone that was fronting this big, loud band, you know. So it was clear to me that journey was going to continue, and that it was going to take, you know, it was going to take a few albums to find our sweet spot, you know. So I think so. Light Up is an album on the way to that, in my head, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But and I feel like Clan. So I always had this thing; it'd be a trilogy of albums, you know, that document this journey. And I do feel like Clan is we have moved to, you know, we've moved the bar up, and I feel like everyone kind of knows what they're doing now. We know what we can do, and we're in a really strong place now to make good music, you know, and to play well live. And so yes, I couldn't be happier. And I mean, the pre-orders for Clan, you know, I made sure they went out early, and it's been getting some amazing feedback, and it kind of just, it sort of is affirming really to me that I think that, you know, it did take 3 albums to start doing something good.
And then after all the many years and whatever, 40 years since we put the first album together, now you were named the best rock band in the world, you know, and it's amazing, man. You know, I know you're a very humble, quiet guy, but think about that, man, for a minute. You know, you were close to giving up in music. Things in life didn't work out, like for everybody, right? We're all human beings, and no money, lockdown. What do I do? You know, how can I put food on the table for my kids? And look at you now, man. Wow,
Yeah.
man.
Well, there's still there's still no food on the table, unfortunately, but it doesn't. It's yeah, you know, you've got to. It's not about. It can never be about money, and it never is. And
Yeah,
you know, for a band like us, it never will be, because you know we're, yeah, having 8 people in the band, you know, and an engineer is financial disaster. You know, you
yeah,
just can't make that work. So,
yeah,
but we're very lucky. You know, we have they're mostly, but not all, people that have been with us in one way or another all along, all through, and they help, subscribe, and they help us a little bit with financially, and that allows us to do what we're doing. But you know, I don't care if we never make any money out of it. You know, it's just trying to keep it going. But it's not about that. It's not about that. You know, it really
yeah,
isn't. But yeah, the prog. So Prog magazine.
yeah,
When I realised that existed, I'd kind of not been aware of the prog scene at all until we did Spirit, you know, and started. Yes, I started kind of re-immersing myself in it in the late noughties. But you know, for years before that, I was completely unaware of what was going on. So when I discovered there's this magazine called Prog, you know, that Jerry had started, I couldn't believe it. You know, a glossy magazine. I mean, the last thing I knew back in the 80s, you know, the media wouldn't touch the subject.
that's right.
You know,
Yeah,
it was like just so out of fashion. No one was interested. They were interested, they just wouldn't admit it, right? So anyway, so now there's this glossy magazine, incredible. And so over these last 5 years, you know, Jerry and the magazine have been so good to us, man. You know, they've been putting us in there when we do something, they put us in there. And a couple of years ago, we have a Friends of Solstice Facebook page, and I thought, you know what, Jess is so good. She deserves a shot at being in that top 10 vocalists, right?
sure.
So I just said to everyone on our group, look, why don't we vote for Jess? So maybe we can get her in the top 10, you know. And what actually happened was that she got in, I think she was number 4 or something crazy.
Yeah,
And I got in there as well, you know. So wow, I just couldn't believe it. And then last year, it happened again, you know. It was just mad. And I was voted number two. I mean, the whole best thing, it's not really about that. Obviously, who is best is your personal view. It's, it's very subjective,
Sure.
but it reflects the audience really, and I think it reflects the music and the way the audience are reacting to it at that time. But because, bands like Marillion have a vastly bigger audience than us, and actually they probably can make some money, but good for them. What they've done, over the years is phenomenal. The way they've piloted that whole pre-ordering, crowdfunding model, and they've had great success with that, which is brilliant. But so when you've got a band that size, they're going to win everything, because they've got this huge audience. So of course, last year, Steve Rothery's #1 guitar player again,
Again, yeah.
and I'm number two, and which I was just thrilled by. But obviously I was never going to be #1 because Steve's #1, right? And we were just having a laugh about it, Oh, Andy, you're snapping at Steve's heels and all this stuff. So I know what happened this year. I think what happened is that, obviously Marillion fans are used to doing well, so probably they're a little complacent, and didn't bother voting because you don't really need to.
Sure.
And we just snuck in under the radar. So next year, man, it's never going to happen again. Those Marillion fans are going to be like, better vote this year, man.
No, but at the end of the day, of course, it doesn't matter. I mean,
It's an incredible honor. It's just an incredible honor.
The journey of you 45 years or whatever, from the first album in '84, 41 years, to keeping the band alive, keep on playing, people go and see you. That's what it's all about. Where they're #1, #2, and that's completely irrelevant. And the latest album you released in February of 2025, Return to Property, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Return to Property.
Property, yeah. So Property,
feel free to elaborate that. That's a very, very. You can sound. Of course, I never see you playing live, but I have some on regular. But I have seen some of the videos, of course, when I was researching the video. You guys sound so good playing live, man.
You.
It's very well-oiled machine, they say here.
Thank you. Well
run, very well run.
Bless you. Yeah. I mean, we don't. I mean, we'll do. And we've just done it actually. We'll do 2 weekends of rehearsal because again, it's expensive. It's expensive to get all those people together in a rehearsal studio, and also everyone's very busy. So we normally have 2 weekends of rehearsals. We have early in the year, so 4 days of rehearsal, and then that's it for the year. So, but the real rehearsal is playing live. That's where
right.
You really kind of get it together. Yeah. So when Dave Pegg got into, because I'm always hustling for gigs, right? So Property Festival, which is it's 20,000 people, and it's not far from here. It's a fantastic festival. One stage. So if you're on there, a lot of people are going to see you. And so I've been trying to get it, of course, for some time. And Dave Pegg from Fairport Convention, when he emailed me and said, I'd like you to play, that's the day I won't forget. I was so thrilled. So when I knew that we'd got that, I wanted to make sure we documented it, because it may well be the only time we ever get to play to 20,000 people who are all listening, Yeah. So I arranged one in advance to try and get it filmed and to make sure we had multi-track audio from the concert, so which was all sorted, and then the only thing that remained was for us to actually play well, And I think we were all so excited. We knew how much it meant to play there, We were all so excited about it, and it just happened that on the day, everyone probably played one of the best gigs they've ever played, We did genuinely play really well that day, and it was a really wonderful experience, and I couldn't have been happier, because the gigs can go anyway, Sometimes even if it might seem good to the audience, it doesn't, you know, the band might feel it's like, it was terrible, you know, they made loads of mistakes or whatever. But it was just one of those great gigs, and it got filmed and recorded. So of course I wanted to release it, and I wanted it to be, it did actually come out at the end of 24, came out at the end of last year, but I wanted it to come out earlier than that because I wanted it to be a bridge between Light Up and Clan. The plan
Okay.
was, you know,
Yeah.
23 is Light Up, 24 is Return to Property because we played in 23, and 25 is Clan. So
Yeah.
it took a little longer, as things do. But I was very happy with the way it turned out. You know, I mixed it in here and I thought, yeah, we've got something good here. You know, it's decent. Richard Swan from Wild Time Records did a great job of the vinyl because what I'm really interested in is the vinyl. You know, CDs are great, they sound great, but I love vinyl. So yeah, I was really happy with it, and Mark at Prog Rock Essentials, you know, we put a package together with this Blu-ray and a CD, and then Sean Blake, who has done the artwork for Sheer, Light Up and Clan, he's a brilliant animator. Actually, it's his work. Does a lot of work for the BBC and people like that. He wanted to get more experience with live camera. And he said, oh, you know, wouldn't it be cool to make a documentary that introduces new people to the backstory of the band? And it would be useful for me because it would be experience. And so he did. He took on this huge task of making a documentary, which is also on Return to Property on the Blu-ray version. And it's great. It's a good documentary, and it kind of fills in all the gaps, you know.
No, absolutely no. That's a masterpiece. And now you are going to be your coming tour. You're playing April 5th, 9th, 10th. You go into Cardiff, Sheffield, London, and so on so forth. And then you're doing some gigs in May, and then August or October as well. Good for you, man.
Thank
Good
you.
for you. You know, hopefully I could see you, as I mentioned before. I go to London often, so hopefully I could see you playing live one day, because I love your music. With you being there, you know, in a show, and meeting you and the band will be great, man. So
yeah, that would be lovely, man. Yeah, I hope that happens.
it was very nice talking to you, Andy. You're a great guy, man. You never give up. You're a fighter, and you know, like a good wine. You get better with age, man. So, and you playing with all the band and all the ladies. You know, at the time, remember that, I don't know, 40 years ago, that with prog rock, ladies there were no singers there. You know, we're all bunch of guys, you know, playing there, and now you're doing something good, man. You know,
Thank you so much, man. It's a lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Take it easy, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bless you.
Thank you, Andy.